Good evening. It is Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. It is now 6:30, well, actually it's 6:34 p.m., and we're going to open the Oakhurst Geological Hazard Abatement District GAD regular meeting. Let's call this to order, and if you could do a roll call, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Diaz?
Yes.
Trupiano?
Here.
Tillman? Here. Juan?
Here.
Chair Cloven?
I'm here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Excellent. With that, we'll move on to item number 2, which is public comment on non-agenda items. Are there anyone in our audience today who have any public comment? Seeing no hands, there anybody in our virtual audience that has a hand raised?
There are no members of the public wishing to speak to this item.
Excellent. We'll close public comment and move on to item number 3, which is action items. And at the request of our city engineer, we're going to rotate action items A and B and start with B. And Larry, on you. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and Board of Directors. I requested that this item be switched so you can have this discussion before you approve the engineer's report in the first item, technically. So as the staff report presents and is attached, there was a site reconnaissance report completed by BSK, who is our geotechnical consultant for the GAD. They performed 2 inspections. One was pre-storm season, one was post-storm season. Essentially, October and March were the rough time frames. They did note certain locations where they pointed out some additional maintenance should be completed. Essentially, their review is a on the ground review visually. There is no subterranean or subsurface inspection as part of this annual report, and that's been the case for the last few. So essentially, they look at V-ditches, they're looking for any ground movement, and they will check drainage inlets. I'll turn your attention to, let's see, the summary of their report, and then I will obviously ask if there's any questions of the board. Let me switch to the page. Pardon me. There were some noted encroachments within the GAD open space. So the areas being looked at by BSK were essentially the closest open space area to occupied homes. They didn't go into the very middle of these open spaces because the impact of, say, creep or some small landslide in the middle of the open space would probably not necessitate any major type of repair or maintenance. But they did make recommendations on, let's see, page 72 of 78 of the packet, or page 24 of their report. And I'm looking at the 4 bullet points or there's 5 that goes to the next page. There's an inlet that was identified, and there's a picture in the report that needed to be cleaned out near Keylock Way. I could confirm that has been done. Jim's crew went out there, I think, about a month ago and cleared it out. That one's a relatively easy one. The second item is there's a drainage box or an inlet near North Valley Park that has, I believe, 7 subdrain pipes that come out and outfall into that inlet. And there's a picture. BSK noticed that water was not coming out of all of the pipes, which is somewhat concerning. You want water to be coming out. So one of the recommendations is to basically hydro-auger those pipes. And it's very long runs because it's relatively deep. This is draining the area of Keylock Way that's up higher than the park, and these pipes are coming down from underneath the slope. And then they noticed certain areas of V-ditches that were displaced or cracked that should be repaired. in order to make sure water continues to flow through the V-ditch and doesn't escape and goes down the slope and then creates erosion. Based on those two main items, GAD manager myself is recommending that the board consider a one-time $50,000 allocation for first priority, trying to hydro-auger those pipes. I started outreaching to some basically roto-rooter type plumbers. These are more commercial level. And given the depth and the length, it's very hard for them to quote it. So I don't think it will cost the whole $50,000, but it's possible it could be a good chunk of it. And I feel the remainder of the amount would be used on the spot repairs for the V-ditches as far as we can go. And based off some prioritization where there's worse damage or potentially worse impact if there's water escaping of those ditches. As you'll see in the next item, which is the engineer's report, and we've discussed before, there's really no additional money in the GAD. I'm recommending some deficit spending on the part of the GAD because these subdrains are very critical to the Key Lock Way area. And I don't have a record of when they were last cleaned out. So I think it's imperative that we do that work to at least reset the time clock or to identify if there's other issues. Part of the cleaning would also be to video camera the pipe. And if there's any clogs or collapses, then we know we have a bigger issue as well. So happy to take questions from the board and then essentially ask you for the authorization for the additional $50,000. And if the board wants to go that direction, then I would make the recommendation in the engineer's report. We add that line item and we would adjust the report and ask you to approve it as amended. However, if you want to leave it as is, it's still there presented. I didn't want to assume and put it into the report. So that's my overall discussion for the site reconnaissance and the other items relative to the finances, which we do every year. So happy to take any questions.
Number one.
So approximately 50,000 is essentially spending future years' assessments. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes. I know we have to be very specific of keeping our funds segregated. And so essentially, you are sort of borrowing against the city's overall fund, but you're going to be paying it back over time, either in a positive vote or over many years of your continuing collection. So I understand it will be very hard to get yourself back to zero, but I think it's important that this particular element, especially the hydro-augering, be performed. The V-ditches is probably a secondary priority, so if the board wanted to sort of identify just that one thing, we could do that. I could still recommend that, but I do recommend that we pursue the hydro-augering.
And by doing that, what is the expected outcome? Like, it seems like it's sorry, I'm answering my own question, but it seems like it could be just like buying a little bit of time.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. What's your sort of return rate on this sort of investment? I think certainly if you're able to clear it and have the water flowing, I don't know how long it could stay that way. But at least if you clear it, you can also videotape it so you have a point in time of when you know, hey, this was good or wasn't good. So you have a data point. I think the hydro-augering in past situations, unless you have something that's continuously filling these pipes, which given how deep they are, they shouldn't be filled, but you never know. Generally speaking, you should hydro-auger, I would say, every 3 to 5 years. And so my guess is it hasn't been done, because in my 2+ years, it hasn't been done. So before that, it could have been multiple years. So I think it's a regular maintenance activity I think should be done, especially if you're not seeing water coming out.
I mean, I think, I undertook an exercise to review the minutes of the last 15 years of the GAD, and I can't recall any record of this ever happening. So, I mean, that's not to say that it didn't. I just could not find a record of it. So, if we do this, it's not, if you're recommending 3 to 5 years, this is not a sustainable activity given our current situation, because, I mean, essentially, we would be encumbering funds, excess funds of the GAD probably for the next 8 years.
Yeah, I would say if you didn't spend on anything other than just doing the tax roll, you're probably saving $25,000 a year, maybe $30,000. So recovery time frame could be as short as 2 to 3 years. But if you are having to do it again, then obviously you're going to sort of fall behind.
Yeah, we would essentially never catch up.
Correct. I agree with you on that point. I would say that it could go longer. I mean, that's a choice of the board, right? Clearly, like you said, and I haven't found a record that has been done anytime in the last few decades either. So could you go longer? Potentially, obviously, you run a bigger risk. But, that's another discussion point you could have, or, 3 years from now. I would say that given what we know today, that's my recommendation. There should be something done to address the existing subdrains. And I'm only asking you as a one-time thing. I'm not saying you have to do it every 3 to 5 years. At this point, it's important for me to inform the board, like, water is the enemy of, geotech.
Can you expand a little bit, like the risk that we are trying to mitigate with these particular drain pipes, like what they're intended to do and what they're not doing?
Correct. Landslides, I'm going to speak very generally, think of as a plane or, a layer in this hillside that is slippery, for example. And so it's more prone to slide, and it could be at whatever depth, right? We know in the Keelock Way area that it has occurred in the past. So I believe the dewatering pipes were in response to that slide. And so these dewatering pipes are very deep. The intention is that it is taking groundwater that's saturated in the hillside and trying to get that water out so it doesn't build up and then activates this slippery plane where the landslide could be. So by removing the water, you're essentially keeping it drier so it's not as slippery, and if you are not seeing water coming out, because this is a relatively deep pipe, essentially this is groundwater. So water at this depth should be coming out continuously. It's not like it's going to just dry up during the summer. And so there should be obviously higher flows in stormy season, but even in the summer season, seeing some water coming out is probably a good thing. And you want to be seeing that. And knowing that, and each pipe is its individual pipe, so understanding one pipe might be one particular area versus another. Some areas may be draining and others are not. And so I think that's why it's critical to be able to clear a clog if there is, assuming that's what's not allowing the water to come out, or to videotape and go up at the same time to understand maybe it is clear and there isn't an issue, and maybe that particular pipe doesn't have as much water. At least you have that history. I would be cautious and be conservative and assume you won't probably want to see water coming out of those pipes. And if there isn't water coming out, you should assume there's a clog, and you want to take that approach to be conservative.
Can you speak to the specifics of the pipe itself? Like, is it what it is made out of, how large it is, how far up it goes?
I can't speak to the very details. I think there's a picture in the report that you'll see where the inlet of those pipes outfall into. They're generally plastic pipe, PVC. I believe the diameter of them around 4 to 6 inches. I don't know if that's continuously back into the slope, but more likely than not, they're plastic pipes. And they probably reach depths of a few hundred feet, in some areas. Essentially, they're running relatively flat or, with an incline, a shallow incline going from the bottom of the slope near the park underneath Key Lock Way. And then I don't know if there's too many riser pipes, that I have not seen, but essentially it's picking up that water in that hillside. And then the bottom of this area is outfalling into this inlet. And then that inlet is a bigger pipe that goes into the storm drain system.
Okay, thank you.
And Larry, the only question that I have, thank you, is, so the process is hydro cleaning, video camera view, and then minor repairs. So if we find anything more significant, then we'd have to cross that bridge
Correct.
when we get to it.
And of that 50,000, I would, like I said, clearing the pipes first, I'm pretty confident you could do both those elements. The repair, if there is something that's clogged, could get very expensive. Obviously, it's pretty deep. You would probably look at a directional type boring or something that we could obviously talk about that at a future meeting once we find out what's going on. But there are different options that you could look at. But if there's any remaining money, then would be to go look at V-ditches and use a concrete contractor to do spot repairs within the open space areas.
Okay, so it's more prudent to know than not to know at this stage what's going on.
It's like any risk analysis,
Right.
right? I think knowing that there's not water coming out of some of these pipes, in my opinion, is important for us to investigate.
Okay.
You never know what could be happening, and if water is building up there, and we don't have inclinometers, right, as another piezometers either to also kind of check where we're at.
Right.
Essentially, we are just looking at a faucet coming out, is water coming out or not? That's where we're at right now,
Right.
right? So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Awesome. With that, I will open this up to public comment. If there is anybody in the audience who has any questions for our city engineer, please raise your hands. Not seeing anybody in the audience. Is there anybody in our virtual audience who has any questions?
There are currently no members of the public raising their hands for this item.
Excellent. With that, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the council for discussion, or to the members of the board for discussion.
I don't think this is a good idea. And not that it's not prudent, I think the recommendation of the general manager is very prudent, but given the status of the funding situation with the GAD, I don't know why we would spend this small amount when no matter what happens, we essentially can't do anything about it anyways. I think it tells a better story to the residents if they're aware of all of these problems and that we're unable to fix them with the funding that we have. If we keep fixing the things incrementally, then I think it sends a mixed message to the residents that we will continue to do so, especially borrowing against future revenues, even though it's not that much. It seems like an inconsistent message to the residents when we are right about to ask them to say, here are the things that we can't do. If you want them done, then you'll have to pay more, because that's going to be right around the corner. And so it seems like good money after bad unless we know that there's a future source to supplement to actually fix the problems rather than just kind of put window dressing on them. So that'd be my take.
I can see that point, but I would think the residents would want to understand better exactly what is wrong up there. And I think yes, it's $50,000, but it's $50,000 to me well spent, if it's going to at least let us know and inform us what's wrong in that particular area. Because I can see people pushing back and saying, thank you for letting us know that we need to pay more, but what are all of the issues, or at least the major ones, that we need to be concerned about when it does come to the ballot? So I would be in favor of spending the $50,000 to at least see, is water going to come out after you do this hydro auger? And at least there's more information for us to go out to the community with.
So my curiosity is, I mean, this is the first time I've heard of this particular technical issue in the GAD relative to this drainage and the hydro auger solution to clean out this drain. Basically, and that's basically what it is. It's a large pipe going into the ground that is collecting water and draining it out and relieving pressure from the hillside. We've talked about other technical issues that are associated with the GAD, like the piezometers and the sheared inclinometers. I mean, and other simple solutions from a cost standpoint to go out and figure out just what are we dealing with as far as measuring groundwater, finding these things and measuring groundwater and figuring out where groundwater is. I mean, there's a lot of questions that's going on with these hills in the first place, and I'm kind of in this place where I agree with member one. I think there is so much money that needs to be spent to figure out what's going on, to be able to tell our residents up there what the problems are. That this particular issue is it more important than cleaning out the V-ditch? Is it more important than fixing, tagging the piezometers and finding out what's going on with the sheared inclinometer? It's hard for me to figure that this is as important. I would like to get your thoughts on that relative to, if we had only some amount of money to spend, why is this the most important compared to everything else we've been talking about?
Chair Cloven, I think how I would explain it is that this is a maintenance element, right? So this is not additional monitoring or even investigation such as piezometer, though. This is a component of how things are supposed to work out there, right? So you could say the same thing about V-ditches, right? But I would compare the risk relative to those two items, and if I'm just singling those two, is vastly different, right? Is that a V-ditch that has a broken, separation and water starts, it's on the surface, right? And clearly, it could be into someone's backyard, or it could trigger a landslide. I'm not saying, but it's superficial to a certain degree. These subdrains in a known slide area, you're never going to see it, right? Right now, our only tool is these outlets of these pipes, because we don't have the piezometers and the inclinometers to be monitoring it. And so it's an element of drainage, right? And I've harped on it that water is bad, right? And so when we're having too much water in certain areas, and in particular subterranean, I think that's a bigger concern. That's why I bring it to the board. I recognize, look, could you wait, and is there going to be anything that's triggered? I don't know. I'm not, I have no ability to predict that. But I bring it before the board for you guys to obviously consider. And then, yes, you are very limited on funds. So you can decide, is this an element that should be done as part of a ballot measure? You could. But, if something happens and you wait, you do have some liability potentially on this issue because of the known area this is. So I think that, if the fact that these were installed post-landslide settlement tells me that, there is not only past concerns, and there was a fix relative to that, but then making sure that it continues to operate so it doesn't happen in the future is a critical component. But, priority, I try to present to you what my opinion is. Obviously, you can think the financial priorities, and, I respect that. So I think that's where I would say the difference is because it's subterranean versus surface between those particular elements, like a V-ditch versus a subdrain. And this is a very large area too. You know, I would say if it was even more localized, you know, we could obviously try to minimize and, you know, go up certain pipes. You know, I believe 2 or 3 were flowing, so we could do half. But I think it probably doesn't save you a lot of money just to get out there, and the long runs that you're talking about do add up. But that's how I would explain sort of the difference of sort of concern in the relative to the drainage.
Thank you.
I mean, our piezometers in a nearby area, inclinometers, they sheared. These pipes are at depth. They're plastic. I mean, I don't know, I've had pipes in my house. They tend to break underground once in a while. Cleaning only works if they're clogged. It doesn't work if they're broken. It may work a little bit if they're broken, I guess. But we're about to tell people we will stop doing the regular maintenance because we don't have the money for it. And then we're going to turn around and do the regular maintenance. I feel like it's an inconsistent message. So it's not I mean, I appreciate your take on it and like your recommendation. I think it's prudent and you know, observing the right amount of diligence. So thank you for that. But I mean, from the aspect of if we are going to make this sustainable, we have to really be consistent in how I think at least, we have to be consistent in how we message and what we're communicating out to the folks there. And what we're going to be telling them is that we're not going to do the maintenance on a go-forward basis because we can't afford it. So that's where I'm at.
And I just want to say, I think it's part of a larger narrative that there are so many issues.
It's really compelling. I mean, if you look
And
at the
it
photos
is.
here, it is very compelling. You don't really need much more information than to just
Right.
look at it. I mean,
But I think maybe it would be just one of many motivating factors when we go and ask folks in the district for increased assessment. And I just worry about spending what we don't have. We already have so little in this budget. Not a fan of deficit spending, so I think I'm inclined to say no to this. But thank you, Larry, for bringing it to our attention. I don't know how other folks feel.
There's so much that needs to be done. I hate to put it that way, but I mean, I've seen your work over the past couple of years, and I've listened to VSK and what they've had to say. There's a lot to be done, and I understand the risk, but I'm also not inclined to spend what we don't have, but put a lot of effort into communication about what these challenges are to the residents and put it in their back pocket to make the decision. That's kind of my take as well. They got to understand it, and we've got to present it in a way that they understand what they're voting on.
Understood. I don't think I need a particular vote. I think it would be essentially, you know, we're not going to adjust the engineer's report in the next item. That's the feedback from the directors. We'll take note. Obviously, I think it's still prudent. We will go continue to look at the location on an annual basis, but understood your direction. So thank you.
And with that, we'll move on to item A, which was first. So, and we'll go ahead second. Thank you.
All right. So this is the annual engineers report. You guys do this every year. This is the presentation of the report, and then to set the public hearing as part of this process. The public hearing will be set on July 16th, and we will send a notice, a one-page notice to all the property owners within the GAD that tells them where they can find this engineer's report, and also notifies them of if they would like to attend the public hearing. It'd be July 16th. So the GAD sends out, I think, roughly about 1,500 of these letters every year. I would notice, as I mentioned in the plan of control last meeting, this would be the letter where we would add additional language if a vote does not pass in the future. And I think this would be the recurring thing to keep people notified. And it's good that, the property owners, the vast majority probably do not recognize it, and, it just goes every year. But it allows any particular new property owners to see it and be able to understand it better. Turn your attention to page, let me see. Page 14 of 78, or page 5 of the report, that gives the overall budget for the GAD. As we discussed, there's expected to be zero at the very end of this year. We did not spend all of the Presley settlement funds, so that's still sort of buoying the GAD as a whole. We've talked about these different budget categories on multiple occasions in the past fiscal year. And we've allocated still some amount for the annual report that I just discussed, and they have to do the site reconnaissance the twice a year. And then we include $20,000 for the administration. That's where Francisco Associates and myself would come up with a ballot measure information for the board. And then we left sort of the remaining amount that's available, which is almost $20,000, for outreach and education. So if there's any available dollars, we'll put it toward that effort. And I think the intention, obviously, is to get to a point next year that this report may be reflective of a ballot measure vote that had occurred already, so that you either know you have the money or it's going to be very similar. And so tonight, we're all asking that you approve the resolution relative to the report and then set the public hearing. That concludes my report.
Any questions from the members? With that, we'll open it for public comment. Are there any questions from the public? Seeing no hands in this room, I will see if there are any questions from our virtual public.
As a reminder, for those that are joining us virtually, please use the raise hand feature if you would like to speak to this item. I have one speaker. And we are on item 8A. Alice Bristol, your microphone is available.
I'm sorry, I may be going back to the previous item a little bit, but I'm confused. Is there $50,000 in the budget right now?
I apologize for the interruption, Ms. Bristol. I apologize for the interruption. We do need to stick to the item 8A.
Okay. I was just curious about if there is $50,000. Okay.
I wasn't able to understand what she was saying.
She's requesting information regarding the $50,000 in item 8B.
Oh, so this is going back to 8B. Allison, we've already given direction to our city engineer on that to not proceed, and we're on item 8A, which is our budget for the coming year.
Yes, that's what she
They
did.
have lowered their hand.
I apologize. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Appreciate it. Are there any other questions from the public?
There are no other members of the public wishing to speak.
Excellent. With that, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the members. And if there are any additional discussion on this. If there is no additional discussion, do we have a motion to approve the recommendations of the GAD budget and annual report for the fiscal year?
I would move what you just said.
Excellent. We have First, moved by Member Wan, and a second by Member Tillman. Please call for the vote.
Okay. On that motion, Director Diaz? Yes. Tillman?
Yes.
Trupiano?
Yes.
Juan?
Aye.
Chair Cloven?
Aye.
Thank you. You have 5 ayes.
And with that, item number 3A closes, and we'll move to item number 4, which is adjournment. We will now adjourn the GAD meeting at 7:10 p.m.
City Council meeting for June 4th to order at 7:17 p.m. We were delayed in starting the City Council meeting because we had an important jihad meeting before this, some important issues for that section of the community that we had to address. Would the City Clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Cloven?
I'm here.
Tillman?
Here.
Juan?
Here.
Vice Mayor Trupiano?
I'm here.
Mayor Diaz?
Yes.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Everybody's present. All right, we'd like to stand now and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll open for public comment for non-agenda items. City Clerk, do you have any cards?
I have not received any cards for general
Thank you.
public comment.
Does anybody wish to address the City Council?
Just wanted to personally thank folks from far and wide who came to our city to join us in celebration of Pride Month this past Sunday. The streets were full, the restaurants and cash registers were full, and the Grove was full, and our hearts were full of pride and joy. Our third parade had just over 60 groups marching, over 40 informational tables in the Grove, and over 5,000 people attending. And let us not forget that our little town of Clayton was the first in Contra Costa County to throw a pride parade and remains the largest in the county every year. Way to go, Clayton, doing the right thing. This year we were honored to have U.S. Congressman Mark DeSaulnier not only marching in the parade but also acting as a keynote speaker. Also marching were Eddie Brisson, Mayor of Concord, Ken Carlson, Contra Costa County Supervisor, Cindy Darling, Mayor Pro Tem of Walnut Creek, Laura Nakamura, Concord City Council, Carlin Obringer, Concord Vice Mayor Matt Wren, Mayor of Pleasant Hill, Chanel Scales Preston, Pittsburgh City Council, Shannon Shaw, Vice Mayor of Oakley. Thank you, Shannon. Kevin Wilk, Walnut Creek City Council, Anissa Williams, Mayor of Oakley, and Monica E. Wilson, Mayor Pro Tem of Antioch, who couldn't make it due to a last-minute illness, and I hope you feel better soon. Of course, our own Clayton City Council members, Peter Cloven and Holly Tillman, not only marching, but as part of our Clayton Pride Board. Peter, you look exhausted by Friday evening, my man. I think you put in over 9 miles walking on parade day. Holly was hosting a party for her daughter the night before and was there first thing Sunday morning. Just thank you both from the bottom of my heart. Your countless hours and efforts to the betterment of our city are truly appreciated by so many. And finally, I wanted to thank all the folks that signed up and devoted their time to helping with this event. You'll notice a few names missing from the masses of local and regional leadership that showed up. Former Mayor Jeff Wan has now gone 0 for 3 after, as a candidate, proudly proclaiming that he would not only support, but march in a pride parade if there was ever such a thing in Clayton. Oh well, just another politician saying one thing as a candidate. And like I said, 0 for 3, dude. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. You said no for a third time. You ain't fooling anybody, dude. Mayor Jim Diaz continues to show absolutely no meaningful support. That's his prerogative. Just disappointed to see that type of leadership in this day and age in the Bay Area. And crocodile tears over there. Thank you for your $50. It helps to soothe the blow after we had to endure your fake little temper tantrum relating to CBCA recently. Finally, I'd like to give a special shout out to Terry Denslow, even though she'd probably hate the fact that I'm doing so. Not because I love her and not because she's my wife, but because this parade never could have happened without her. Her passion, her leadership, and her organization are truly things that are changing Clayton. If you like what is happening relating to pride or change in our little town, next time you see her, give her a big hug and say thank you. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, anybody else that want to speak? No one else here in the Hoyer Hall? I believe we have at least one hand raised.
Rosie Straka, your microphone is available.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. Rosie Straka here, 26-year Clayton resident, volunteer, and secretary of the Clayton Pride Board. I wanted to say what a wonderful event we had on Sunday, our third annual Pride Parade. We received many great comments from parade goers, vendors, and marchers. My line dance class marched in the parade, and I went to class this morning. One of the ladies who participated and lives in Alamo said she had a wonderful experience. She said all the people were so friendly, happy, and she loved the family feel. The following comment was left on the garbage post. You'll see that in my next paragraph. The event was beautiful, super organized, family friendly, so many nice people, and it was truly a happy time. And that was the end of that comment. Back to me. The opening ceremony was beautiful with heartfelt speeches about how difficult it was to be gay in this community. Marc Desagnier also spoke of the hardships his brother endured. All were in agreement that events like this help everyone feel welcome and loved. As Holly said, if this event saved just one life, then we've done our job. I was happy to see that the staff had the fountain turned on as requested. Sadly, when we arrived at 6:30 a.m. to set up, the garbage cans were overflowing. As I was marking the walk with chalk for our booths, I was picking up garbage in the grove left from the day before. Someone on next door suggested that Pride left a giant mess. That is not true. We arrived to a mess. Republic Services donated additional trash bins, which we collected and returned after the event. There was a birthday party after our event. They were the ones who left the mess as the garbage cans were already overflowing. With the exorbitant amount of fees that have been imposed on us, I would have at least expected fresh trash cans. There was also a comment on our feedback form that toilet paper ran out early and nobody replaced it. It was really quite embarrassing that we had mayors and vice mayors from neighboring cities, but our own mayor and vice mayor did not show their faces. Only 2 of our city council members attended and marched, Peter Cloven and Holly Tillman. I was literally shaking my head. I would encourage the entire council to think about how to become more engaged with a part of this community that really needs us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else on the Zoom attendee list that's got their hand raised. Do you?
There are no other speakers to
Okay,
this
then
item.
I'm going to close the public comment at this time. And we will now move back into the agenda. And the next item up is going to be the consent calendar. Anybody wish to address any one of those items there, pull it or modify it or what have you?
I just would like our city manager, Adam, to talk a little bit more in depth about the nature of item 4E, which is our 4-Leaf Inc. contract, and just how that's going to roll out over the next 6 months. Kind of the update that you provided me earlier today, I think would be terrific, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, Mayor, and council members. Happy to give a very brief summary of the 4-Leaf contract that's before you this evening. As you are aware, and I was going to mention it again in my city manager's report, our community development, Dana Ayers, is leaving the city and moving on to a new opportunity at the end of this week, and we are transitioning to a firm that provides planning services for cities here in the Bay Area, and specifically here in the Valley. And so this is an opportunity over the next 3 months to evaluate our community development department and the staffing needs and the level of work and effort that goes into both planning and code enforcement activities. 4-Leaf provides these services, and so we will work with 4-Leaf to oversee the work that our community development director has been providing. And over the next 3 to 6 months, we will then come back to council with a recommendation on how to move forward with our planning services. That could include coming back and going out for an RFP to outsource planning services. A lot of discussion if we were to go that direction before that decision were to be made. Or go back to your natural situation here in Clayton where you have had full-time staff serving in these positions. So it's really an opportunity. One, it's a need. We have to fill the need of the community development director and building official, or not building official, code enforcement officer. And then second, it gives us an opportunity to evaluate the staffing needs as we go forward, and that's the opportunity we're presenting to the council this evening.
Okay, and we'll have a full-time community development director through this 4-Leaf consulting group, correct?
We'll have the 4-Leaf firm will provide staffing at the community development director level and also at the code enforcement level. Those are two separate duties, and they actually report to different managers. But they'll also be in the office a minimum of 2 days a week, and they'll be staffing the community development director will be staffing the planning commission meetings as well.
Great. Adam, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Anyone else wish to be?
Yes, I just
Councilmember
wanted to ask
Tillman.
one more question about that. So the number of days that they're in the, actually in the office, can you just elaborate a little bit more on that? So they're only in person, but they're going to be working remotely the rest of the time? Is that the intent?
That is correct.
Okay. I don't have anything else on that one, but I did have another item that I wanted to pull just to ask a question on.
Can I ask a question on this one?
Yes, yeah.
as well? So I think in the report it says recommending an amount not to exceed 90,000 over 5 to 6 months, give or take, and it's 2 positions. Both the code enforcement officer, sorry, I have this mint that you gave me, and I'm not able to enunciate as clearly. It's the code enforcement officer and the community development director position, both. So 6 months, 90,000, 2 positions is at what? No, sorry, that's the piece I was missing. So there has to be. I must be missing something. What is the FTE equivalent that they're doing?
So it's the equivalent of both of those positions, 50%.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're up.
Did anyone have any more questions on that one?
So it's extrapolating that if we were to hire them as a full-time replacement for our community development director and our code enforcement officer, that you're assuming that's a $360,000 burden if they were full-time for a full year?
I think that's roughly correct, fully burdened.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, what was our code enforcement officer and our community development director together if they were full-time?
We don't have the fully burdened cost, so we have just the salary cost, and that's what we're applying to this.
I'm just trying to figure out, is there cost savings by doing this? I mean, clearly, I'm not complaining
No.
because I see that there's a need to staff it now.
Yeah.
But I'm just looking at long-term needs of our city and what that looks like.
Yeah, when Community Development Director Ayers and I had the conversation on the budget, we took the 2 positions at their hourly rate, and that's the contract amount. So there is a savings when you look at the fully burdened rate. And it's also, that's if we go for 6 months, and then again, as we evaluate the position in the first 3 months, we may come back and say there's additional duties that we'd like Four Leaf to provide, and we'd come back and amend the contract if that was if that was the outcome of the initial evaluation. Or we may come back after the first 3 months and say we're going to move forward on recruiting a full-time community development director and office assistant.
Councilmember Tillman?
Thank you. My question's on item 4D. So maybe this is for the city engineer then. And as you're coming up, I'll just tell you what my question was. It referenced that in the upcoming cycle, the streets that were going to be paved, and Pine Hollow Road was mentioned. And I'm just trying to understand exactly which area that is, because I know that we were doing that. I thought we were doing something joint with Concord on that road, and I wanted to know the status of that. And then the other question I had was what an average PCI is. Since we've been at 78, it seems like forever. I'm just curious why it isn't moving, and what's a good score?
Okay, I'll try to remember the question.
So the Pine Hollow Concord joint
Yes.
venture first.
So that project is a complete streets project. It goes from Clayton Valley High School all the way past Ignacio up to the intersection with Mitchell Canyon. That's in the grant-funded stage. So we as a group, but primarily Concord, because 90% of the project is within Concord, received a grant to pursue further funds. So they have to do a feasibility analysis. And so Concord has been the lead. I don't know where they're at on the overall feasibility study at this time. I don't believe it started because we have not had the discussion yet of hiring a consultant or anything. So I believe it received some grant funding, but needs to start the study phase. The portion within Clayton was to essentially just add sharrows. It wasn't to widen. And I don't believe the project was looking at doing like a true pavement rehabilitation, likely some kind of seal coat, and then with striping. So the segment of Pine Hollow is from the Clayton boundary. I'm trying to find it in my staff report. But essentially the portion within Clayton that would have, we don't know exactly what the type of fix is, but because they'll need to go study it more in detail, but to do a rehabilitation. At the very least, address potholes, and then either put new asphalt in or put a sort of a heavier duty seal coat. My guess in that section, it doesn't have the truck traffic like Mitchell Canyon, so it's probably not as bad. But when we look to identify the streets for the RMRA, which we have to do every year, so we have to turn this in by July, I looked at the collector arterial roads that were sort of the lowest ranked within the pavement management report. So the lowest PCI, which is pavement condition index, a score of 0 to 100, 0 being it's like gravel, not a road anymore essentially, and 100 being a brand new road. So that gives you scale. The 78 number is the average of the entire network. So that number is relatively good for the Bay Area. If you are in the 70s, you are probably in the top quarter of the agencies in the Bay Area, roughly speaking. If you're in the 80s, you're in the top 10, essentially. So having fallen just below 80, you probably fell out of the top 10. But generally still pretty good. And a lot of that, frankly, is because Oakhurst is a relatively new development. I mean, relatively speaking, right? It's still 20 plus years. But, and so you have that component that keeps the overall average score up higher. But I would say in general, Clayton has a pretty good pavement condition compared to some of my previous employers and other agencies I know of. So it is a good thing, but like anything that's pavement related, it's a slippery slope. So you start getting into numbers of 60 to 70, you start to fall very fast, and the cost to fix it gets much more expensive. As opposed to doing seal coats, you need to take the asphalt out and put new asphalt in. That gives you a general context. So the 4 streets I think we identified were, the ones I identified were the sort of the lowest rated with the highest traffic use. And we will probably add other residential streets, but since this is gas tax money, we have to identify the exact streets we're going to work on. I figured those 4 for sure, and then we'll probably add additional streets at a future council discussion. And we were talking about CIP tonight. The 2026 includes these 4 segments, and then we'll add more streets. We don't need to do that tonight, but at a later date.
Okay. That's helpful. And it doesn't have to be right now, but it would be nice to see what we've done, maybe even in the last 10 years, because it seems, and I get it's high traffic areas, right? The ones that are being used the most. But I swear these are the same streets every time it feels like these come before us. I am wondering.
I think that's fair.
I'm wondering what's going on with the others, and when, not that they're being neglected, I'm just curious when those will ever be done.
It's a really good question. Generally speaking, traffic, especially truck traffic, has a exponentially higher impact on roads than your regular passenger vehicle. So you could put 1,000, Toyota Corollas on a road, and it'll probably be the equivalent to 1 semi, right? So that's a big part of it. So a lot of arterials and collectors get more of the impact from, so you would tend to address those more. And it's more costly because of traffic control. I think picking residential streets, and I remember Vice Mayor Tripiano asking about this in the past, we need to decide as a city how you want to approach the priority. There's many different ways you can do it. You could go by regions, you can go by the score, and I think that's the discussion we should have on what we want to add to those 4 streets. The benefit obviously is higher for a street that's used by more of the community, so that's another weighting factor. But the other element of why certain streets, the higher traffic streets, get put on the list more often is because most federal and state grants require that the money be spent on certain higher traffic roads. So grant money is a big factor, like what we're going to pave this summer, like Mitchell Canyon, Mount Terra Parkway, Regency. Those all qualify because they're on this map that basically is what's called a minor collector and above level. So like the cul-de-sacs, you can't use federal funding on. So that's why you tend to see it be reused more often.
Okay, that's helpful. And then the last question I had, going back to the Complete Streets grant that's with Concord, by us putting Pine Hollow between the western city limits to Pine Hollow Court, since we were only doing Sharrows on our portion, it's not that big of a deal with that coming in later.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I mean, I think the city could decide if they want to go ahead and make the striping change now. But essentially, the grant funding is intended to address that. So I would say unless there's a big push to do it earlier, you will probably get some of it covered through a grant, and you can leave it as is. And you don't know how long that project could take. It's a very ambitious project because of the length. So, by the time you repave it and that project comes through, it could be time to restripe it anyway. So I think that's what I would recommend at this time, is just to replace it in kind.
No, I wasn't saying that we should put in the Sharrows. I just didn't want to do work on it now and then have them come in to do their project and undo what we just did. I just didn't want to waste any money with us doing it.
I don't believe that will happen. It won't affect the pavement itself.
Perfect.
The striping may change, but that's relatively small.
Okay, thank you.
Just FYI, Concord's average PCI is in the 50s.
Thank you. Well, it should be. Tires are. Yes. We're talking about Concord's roads, and I said it should be because it's messing up a lot of people's tires. They're horrible.
That's why they passed the sales tax. But I live in Concord, so I am fully aware of your guys' assessment of the situation.
Average PCI in Concord, 56.
Anything else, Mr. Juan? The light's on. Anybody else wish to pull any of these items? Okay, there was a little bit of discussion on 4E, and what my 2 cents are worth is that I appreciate the fact that the interim city manager is really looking at ways to improve our revenue and expense proposition, and I'm very, personally, I find it very rewarding that he has he hasn't closed on any options, and which I think is a very good approach to this. And you're going to hear from me on this a number of times. He is positioning Clayton for success. He's positioning Clayton for success. Anything else on the agenda?
Just one more. Sorry, just one more on that same agenda item, 4E. I believe in there it mentioned the contractors for housing projects, or any projects really, contractors will pay 4 Leaf's contractors' time. Can you explain how that works? And I'm curious if it impacts, excuse me, any projects that are already on the docket, that are already being worked on.
Yeah, that's a good question, and our community development director is here online if you'd like her to respond. Dana is here, so we may want to promote her. I think what's meant there, and I'm going to let Dana give you a fuller answer, but it's consistent with our current practices. So as we have applications, there are certain projects where there are developer fees that offset the costs. And so why don't I let Dana respond a little bit more thoroughly.
I missed a little bit of that getting promoted, but yes, that's understood. Is correct that the estimated budget, the not to exceed amount that's in the staff report, is essentially the fee schedule rate, which is the fully loaded rate for the community development director and the code enforcement officer. Now, the work that the community development director does in part is on private projects. Right now, there are 2 projects that are pending, Silver Oak Estates, as well as the Peacock Creek Townhouses across the street from the Elkhorst Country Club. In the fee schedule, developers are required to pay full cost for the processing of their application. So anytime that the community development director or any staff person for that matter spends on those projects can be billed directly to those projects rather than to the general fund. So what it is explained in the staff report is that the not to exceed amount is $90,000, but you can expect that some of that money will be billed directly to projects rather than to the general fund, and will be paid by the applicants for those projects.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, with Dana on the screen, I was going to wait until the city manager's report, but I would like to take the moment to thank Dana for her service. Her last day will be this Friday. Her last day in the office will be this Friday. I found Dana to be a consummate professional. I can always count on her to give me just the facts, nothing else, no bias, no prejudice, just this is the facts. These are her recommendations. They're always thorough. And I really have appreciated the month that I've had, a little bit more than a month that I've had working alongside Dana. You'll be missed, but I know that you are off to an exciting opportunity. But between coming here as a consultant, as an interim, filling in, and then getting her arm twisted to stay as the permanent, it was a good outcome for Clayton. And again, on behalf of the staff, I would like to give you our best and appreciate what you've contributed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. We all appreciate you, and we wish you the best. Thank you.
Anyone else before I open it up public comment?
Is she not going to be here for the rest of the meeting? I guess I'll echo that sentiment too. If you're not going to be on, thank you for everything, but I know how to find you. And she's my daughter, in case anybody didn't know that. Someone said that at the Clayton Cleans Up.
Okay, now that I think we're all finished on comments for the consent calendar, I will open it up for public comment. Anybody in the Hoyer Hall wish to address any item on the consent calendar? Seeing none, anybody on the Zoom land?
There are no speakers for this
Okay,
item
then
online.
I'm going to close the public comment on this item and bring it back to the council for action.
Move approval.
Moved by member Juan
I'll second.
and seconded by Vice Mayor Cipriano. With the city clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cloven,
Aye.
Tillman,
Yes.
Juan,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Tripiano,
Yes.
Mayor Diaz.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 5 ayes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, the next item on the agenda, item 5, recognitions and presentations. We have none. So that completes that item. And we move to reports under item 6A with the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have much more to add. I did want to recognize Community Development Director Ayers, and I've done that. I would also like to just take a moment and recognize Dan Johnston, who's our senior maintenance lead. He was filling in for our Superintendent of Public Works, Jim Warburton, and while he was on vacation, and we had a heavy load last week, but obviously the support for the Pride Parade, I think, was super helpful, including making sure that the flags were raised, making sure that the fountain was on, making sure that the electricity was available, and that the water was turned off on the splash zone. So again, coming in on a Sunday is above and beyond, and I think, again, that really shows what Clayton is about. You know, you have a tremendous amount of volunteers, a tremendous amount of leadership here on the council of you all rolling up your sleeves and doing the work. But I did wanted to just recognize Dan Johnston for his involvement representing the city and supporting the event. I did get a report back from the maintenance team and from the police department that the event was successful and that, you know, from their perspective, it was a successful weekend here in Clayton. So that ends my report. Happy to answer any questions from the council.
Anybody have any questions? Nope. Thank you, Mr. City Manager, and that completes item 6A. And now I'll move to public hearings, of which there are none, and to item 8 for action items. And the first one up is a resolution amending the salary schedule, establishing salaries for newly added and reclassified positions and eliminating certain positions. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Joining me to my right here is Regina Rubier, and she's our finance advisor while we're in transition. And this is probably the first time you all have seen her in person as a collective of the council and here in the community. So welcome, Regina. Great to have you. This is kind of a cleanup item. We brought this item to the council on May 21st for the council's consideration of seeking authorization of the city council to update the positions of accounting technician to accountant, the city clerk position to city clerk assistant to the city manager, and adding the position of assistant city manager / administrative services director. The council took action on the 21st approving those changes, but we had a bit of a hiccup on the resolution, only listing the salary ranges, not the steps. So we're back here in front of you to clean that up and ask for council's approval. The salary adjustments have been made. Those are in the resolution, as you can see in your staff report. They include the proposed resolutions are consistent with the city's current fiscal year budget and include future current budget plans. That's also built into the outgoing, the upcoming budget that you will discuss later this evening. I should note that there's a little bit of cleanup here. There is mention in the report of looking at the administrative assistant position, which currently is your office assistant / code enforcement officer. We are asking you to not take any action on that. That's not in the resolution. The resolution doesn't identify it. When we finalize the staff report, for whatever reason, we forgot to eliminate that in the discussion. You can see that in bullet number 2, establish the administrative assistant salary. We're not asking you to do that tonight, so I just wanted to note to strike that. Lastly, the staff is asking the city council to adopt a resolution to establish salaries for the recently reclassified positions of the accounting technician position to accountant, the city clerk position to city clerk assistant to the city manager, and add the position of assistant city manager administrative services director, and amend the city of Clayton salary schedule for these positions, and eliminate the positions of accounting technician, executive assistant to the city manager / HR director, and the finance director. That concludes my report, and both Regina and I are available to answer your questions.
Thank you.
I have one.
Chelman.
Excuse me, the administrative assistant piece that you're removing, will it also be removed from the title of the resolution? It's in there too.
We will strike it from the
Okay.
title.
Okay.
Thank you. I did not see that one.
No problem.
Yep, see it.
Anyone else? Thank you. I do want to say this is another fine example of where the city manager has taken a look at the administrative function that keeps the city moving forward and has really brought forth some excellent recommendations that solidify a number of the functions up there for more efficient and moving forward with what they have to do. And just as a personal comment, I do want to say, for once, it always bothered me that we had an assistant to the city manager. We finally have an assistant city manager, which I think is a good move forward. I think that gives us parity with a number of the other communities around the 19 cities in Contra Costa County. All right, if there's no other comments from the city council, I'm going to open it up for public comment. And anybody in Hoyer Hall? Seeing none. Anybody on Zoom land?
As a reminder, please use the raise hand feature if you would like to speak to this item. There are no members of the public wishing to speak to this item.
You have one or not?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to close public hearing on this item and bring it up 8A back to the council for action.
I would move approval with the amendments that our city manager mentioned.
I'll second it.
Moved by member Juan and seconded by Vice Mayor Trubriano. Would the city clerk please take the roll?
Thank you. And on that motion, Councilmember Cloven?
Aye.
Tillman? Aye. Juan?
Yep.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Tripiano?
Yes.
Mayor Diaz?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5 ayes.
Thank you so much. We now go to action item 8B, which is to adopt a resolution to approve the City of Clayton's 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2023, 24 through 27, 28, and incorporate the proposed improvements and project allocations into the overall fiscal plan 24 to 25 annual budget. City engineer.
Good evening again.
It's your night, Larry.
It is. It is. So, as council's aware, this is an annual process. The CIP is a 5-year document. It's essentially a planning tool. You're only approving the allocations in the current fiscal year, but it is important to look beyond that because a lot of capital projects require multiple fiscal years. And the intention is to be able to save money if you need it, allocate it, and that way you're not always just spending in your current year. Technically, the 5-year CIP is the current fiscal year, 3 future fiscal years, and just the existing or the current fiscal year, and you'll see that in the document. This year, the intention wasn't to make major changes. We did add 6 projects to the CIP. Most of them are relatively small or generally planned projects, such as the biannual paving project is a good example. The other projects include the Mitchell Canyon Road pedestrian path improvements, which we received a $50,000 grant. So there's some additional allocation from other funding sources, primarily Measure J. We included a neighborhood traffic management program. That's been a common request in my time here of looking at traffic calming measures. So allocating certain funding for not only the engineering, but more of the coordination, but then potentially the cost of implementation. Most traffic calming measures are relatively low cost. So the annual budget, I believe, is $27,000 a year. The other 2 that I mentioned were a trails inventory and assessment report and the Mount Terror traffic lanes restriping that we discussed at our previous meeting. So we incorporated that into the CIP. The overall projected budget for fiscal year 24-25 for the capital improvement plan is a little over, it's about 3.1 million. It's spread out over mostly restricted funds, gas tax, and there's 2 components. One is the HUDA, which is your original gas tax, and the RMRA is the Senate Bill 1 that was passed, I don't know, almost a decade ago now. That has to be used on capital projects. A lot of your gas tax annual funding is for operations currently, and you'll see that in the chart on the last page of the staff report. And then Measure J, which is contract costs to Transportation Authority funding through their sales tax measure, the return to source money, and sometimes there's grants through there. And then there are other various grants that I mentioned through Caltrans, state, federal. And then the capital fund is actually money that's been moved previously from some of these other funds for capital projects that is still in that fund. So we're utilizing that money and spending it out. So the project sheets are included in the CIP. So each individual project, and then the fund balances for those are provided. Happy to address any questions on those in particular. The Planning Commission has to go through a review of the CIP for general plan conformance. So that was conducted May 28th, and so that resolution is attached. And assuming the council approves the CIP, if there's amendments, we will make those adjustments. We'll attach the resolution, and then it'll become its own document going forward. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Wong.
Yeah, on page 170, I believe, of the PDF, which is, let me go to it. Page 10 of the internal page reference. This is the, sorry, this is the wrong page, not 170. 171, my bad, page 11. This is the trails inventory and assessment report with capital improvement. So my first comment is the justification is probably a copy and paste error. But for this one, are we authorizing the $250,000 spend? Because I know that we recently said, yes, please go out to RFP. It will likely come back with some amount, and then we'll have a decision point at that state at that point. So is this making that decision? I'm not clear on what we're authorizing here.
So the intention is to plan for it. So I've included it. We did have a discussion about the relative costs being around $250,000. Clearly, the council still has to decide to award the contract. But if the intention is to proceed with it, That's why I included it as a budget item, because obviously the relative cost is relatively high. And it's accounted for in the LMD budget going forward, if it's going to be taken out of the LMD. Obviously, that's the most tied in. It could come out of general fund. That's obviously a different source. It could have come out of gas tax or Measure J. Those are more road restricted funds. So the thought was those would be the LMD. Now, we can remove it. I recognize the council authorized to do the RFP, and there's some cost to that. It's probably $20,000, my time getting through the review and reviewing proposals, and likely coming back in like 3 to 4 months timeframe. And that time the council can decide. And I don't know what the cost will be. Obviously, it may be lower, it could be higher, and the best proposal will be presented to the council for your consideration. So you're not authorizing the actual spend of the dollars, but in terms of planning for it, this is the document I feel you should be making sure you set aside the money for the potential of it, so you don't double spend it, right? That it's available if you are going to go forward with it. That was the intention.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I believe in the LMD budget, this item is not included in our latest budget, so I just want to make sure that they're consistent. And I think it just seems a little premature, even though it's not committing the thing, and you're just planning for it, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, I mean, it is a CIP. I think the intention is to plan for it, right? If the council is not planning to do this, certainly take it out. I recognize that you're probably somewhere in between. Either, we could not put it in here and come back, but right now we have no financial sort of authorization to spend dollars, right? Generally speaking, dollars that are put in the budget or in the CIP, the council has sort of blessed, right? Now, we can't move forward without the council, and that's not the intention. But it's a prerogative of the council. If you'd like to remove it out of the CIP, that's fine. I think it's just a matter of making sure at some point this dollar amount will have to be planned for. Well, it needs to be planned for, but it needs to be decided upon if it's going to be used or not.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just add very quickly, Mr. Mayor? Can I just add? I mean, I think that Councilmember Wan's question is pointing out the difference in the budget, especially in the LMD versus the capital. But I agree with our city engineer. The capital project this is your blueprint, and you gave direction as council to move forward on the RFP to request proposals. But until you receive those proposals back, there's no obligation to fund it until you see what comes back. But in the planning process, it's good to have this information as part of your plan so that staff knows what they're working on, the public knows what the engineer's working on, and when it comes back, it's because we were directed to come back, this is an estimate, could come back lower, could come back more expensive. There may be a variety of things that we negotiate when we see the responses. So it's just the beginning of a process, but it is a two-step process. Have your plan in your CIP program, and then have your discussion in your budget presentation.
Yeah, I get that, and I think that's prudent. Is there a way to just have it as a TBD amount rather than having an amount here? Because I think when we have an amount here with an unknown, it creates it's a bit of a, I don't want to, how do I say this? It creates a cognitive bias of anchoring in terms of the first number that you see. Essentially, you tie yourself to the number, and I want to make sure that we don't do that because we don't have information yet. And so that's really my concern. It's not that we won't do it or we will do it. It's just we don't have information yet. So I would hesitate to put a number down because then it gives it makes that the status quo.
Can I comment? I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, just my follow-up question was kind of on the tail end of that. Has that RFP gone live yet? And when? Oh, okay. So are you in the process of crafting that?
So the current status is I've worked with the TLC, or Trails Landscape Committee Subcommittee, which was comprised of 3 members. We worked a couple Zoom meetings and created a scope of work. That scope of work is pretty robust, so that's why I want to be very clear. The intention is to not only inventory everything, but then give a quantitative assessment of what the cost to repair or to bring it to certain different levels. That's a good effort, because if you're going to go do improvements in the future, you need that level beyond just knowing what size of the trail it is here or there. So I think it's those 2 are big components. Obviously, there's a lot of walking on the ground and looking. I halted that process about 3 weeks ago because we were going into the budget, and I prioritized the budget. So it's currently at my doorstep to draft the RFP based off our kind of collective scope of work. And so I intend to work on that probably in July or end of June after this process. I would say, like I mentioned previously, my efforts of my time in not only preparing the RFP, but guiding through the process, because you're going to then review proposals, prepare a staff report. I'm estimating that's probably around somewhere between $10,000 to $20,000 of my time. That's roughly 40 to 60 hours of my time over that period. I think it's a good investment. I think it's something that it's been talked about before, but it's important, right? I bring this up is if it's of value, then you should continue to go forward. But if the concern is the cost is going to be too high, which I don't know what the cost will be, but if whatever the cost is may be too high, you may be spending time on my effort, and I don't want to waste the city's money, but I do believe that it's an important thing to do, so I don't want to discount it. But I think, like any of these discussions, it's important to be clear that at this time, like, you're going to commit $20,000 potentially on this, but if you have no intention of spending the $250,000 range, I would not recommend you have me work on it, because it's a waste of money, honestly. So that's why it's important to have this. Like, if I told you it's $5,000, clearly it's low, it probably wouldn't be a big issue, but I want to be very upfront that you're not going to have sticker shock come 3-4 months from now after you go through this proposal process. And you could always work with that scope of work and change it. But right now, the current scope of work, I do estimate it's going to be it's probably going to be at least $200,000. And so if you add my time in and just a little bit of contingency, I think understanding that this process and it's probably going to take 6 to 9 months of time, maybe even longer. And if we want it to be in time for a future potential look at the existing LMD tax, then it needs to be done pretty quick. So you may have to push the consultant to do it faster. So that has cost. So it's just give you a very upfront understanding of the situation today when you have had very little investment so far, right? But we're about to embark on that, and there's going to be some investment put into it. So hopefully, you could decide how you want to. If you want to still continue, then I would recommend you at least put $20,000 in here to at least account for that process. But you're not really budgeting for the actual work.
Right.
So it's limited-sighted, maybe not short-sighted, but limited-sighted on how you want to approach it. Like a lot of these CIP projects, we don't know the exact amount, but we're trying to earmark the dollars. A good example would be the paving projects. You could move some of those dollars toward ADA or a curb ramp project or whatever you want, and then we would move some of those dollars there, and then obviously we have to lower the paving project amount so we're not double spending it. And so that's key. And we left it pretty consistent with the past, which is, you do a biannual paving project. Generally, most of the funds are going back into the roads, but those could be moved around, but then if you're moving some of that money, you got to take it from, essentially from that particular paving project, for example.
So I just want to, one clarifying, when we talk about the scope of work, you're just talking about the assessment, not the repair and maintenance, which may result of that assessment, correct?
Correct. The cost here is only the report itself. I do see, like, the intention was maybe to put trail improvements in the future. I did remove that out of the financial element because we don't know if there's going to be money or not. But essentially, the $250,000 is to get a report to the council. That's the estimated cost that I could tell at this time.
Which is the assessment. Okay, thank you, Larry.
Anyone else? One thing has always mystified me, how many buckets do we have for various projects? You have capital, you have operating expense. I was an executive with AT&T. We had 2, capital, and that included everything, buildings, automobiles, whatever. And then we had operating expenses. How many do we have here? Because I don't see anything in this capital program that addresses any of the vehicles. So it's in a separate category. Is that correct?
I believe so, and I think Regina can probably address it more in the overall budget. But
Yeah.
I believe there's a separate fund for sort of the vehicle / replacement costs.
Yeah.
That's a separate. This is intended for generally public right-of-way improvements. I mean, if the city was doing a remodel of the library, I would say you should include that in here. It's a capital type project. But it's meant to be a one-time or a program, like an ongoing program, I think is another element it's good to keep track of, because fundamentally, my main intention is to ensure that these various funding sources we're utilizing, we aren't double spending the dollars. Like a good example is gas tax. If you look at, we take in 300-something thousand, 330,000, but we spend 200,000 in operating costs, which is primarily the maintenance crew. We are going to transfer $50,000 from gas tax to the street light. So we try to account for that. So, you know, that 300,000 we're getting each year is basically gone in operating. So I'm not, if you see in the funds, we use very little of the HUDA gas tax dollars for capital projects because there's not a lot of balance there. The RMRA and the Measure J tend to accumulate more for capital projects, and you'll see that. And so that's a good example. The LMD, that's new into the CIP. Last year, I didn't include it because we didn't have any capital funds coming out of it. But I worked with Regina to say, okay, if this is potentially coming out of the LMD, we should have a budget. So most of it's operating, and we try to account for that essentially. But we are aware there's, you know, if we're going to ask for 250,000 and put it in here, that's why we put a fund sheet. So.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other questions from us before I open it up?
Just one more, I'm sorry. So the RFP for the landscaping would not be considered a capital improvement project, right? And that could come out of the LMD if we determine we're going to move forward with that RFP separately, correct?
Yeah, generally speaking, that's a ongoing operation maintenance type service. So like weed abatement, those things tend to fall on the operating side. So the budget that Regina is preparing covers pretty much everything's operational. And then I look for elements that are operational costs that are coming out of these particular funds that I mentioned to make sure that we're covered, we're not spending it capital dollars at the same time we're using it as operating dollars. And the landscape, it's not a capital improvement, so I don't.
It is not. That's an interesting point. Yeah.
I just wanted to make that distinction. And then the only other questions that I had is one of the projects you had was the GIS.
Yes.
And is that, do we have are we using GIS software? I know that's come up several times as a, or is it a product of yours that we're using, or does the city?
The
have
city has
GIS?
its own account.
Okay,
It utilized the consultant that I brought on, but we built probably, I don't know, 50 or 60 layers in there, including layers that are available to the public from the county, as an example. One element, I was working with Community Development Director Ayers, was to try to add a few more layers. I'll probably work with Four Leaf if there's other additional layers. We haven't made it public use. It is, the city has an account. I haven't access, Dana had access to be able to view it. Essentially, it's a bunch of layers for different elements that are assets within the city. So private roads is a good example, or we're trying to build storm drain pipes. That's a lot more effort because a lot of it's underground, so it's a lot harder to find as opposed to streetlights, for example. We have a streetlight layer, for example.
okay. And something that you said made me just think, maybe because we're talking about trails and landscaping, is there, it doesn't have to do with capital improvements, but any update from FEMA yet on our trail repair? Like, is there anything to report on that?
Unfortunately not.
Okay.
It's a very good question. I think it's a good opportunity to update. FEMA is very backed up. I have a couple other clients that I work on for FEMA, and we did have a discussion, it's probably been 6 months at least, about bringing on a consultant to do some very preliminary work with a limited budget. I did not need to go forward with that contract because FEMA had enough, I was able to supply them enough information to do their review. I don't think they've done the review yet, but they've logged it in. They may come back and ask for additional information, and I may need to get a consultant. I think we tried to limit it to like 50,000 or something. But I've limited the expenditures as much as possible until we know that we're going to get reimbursed. They have not made the decision. The only unfortunate part is they also have an 18-month sort of expiration from the event, which is January of 23, which is July 1 of this year. They're aware of it. I said, look, we're not going to be able to do the work by July 1 if you're not telling us. They recognize that we'll probably have to ask for an extension. So we do that extension technically through Cal OES, the state. The state does that process. They just let us know, actually today in an email, that we can start talking to the state because it's only a month away. And that would be where we go. But we have not spent any dollars yet, but we also may run into the issue of ran out of time, and so we're going to have to fight for the extension too. So that's currently where we're at. Unfortunately, it hasn't moved in 6 months, honestly. After we had that discussion, they did confirm that the information, they accepted our application, they just haven't reviewed it.
Larry, thank you for that update, appreciate it.
Councilmember Cloven.
Quick question on the GIS. You said there's many layers. I know that when I did my ride-along with Mr. Warburton, I asked him the question, besides you, does anybody else know where this valve is, or this controller is, or that is? And it became pretty apparent that his knowledge in his head was exactly where everything was. And should something happen to him, that knowledge was gone. So I'm curious if the GIS program has a layer that we could use for him to get it out of his head and onto paper or into a computer and then in the cloud, so that somebody else could use that in case that happens.
That's our intention to have it. We have not done it yet. I think that is an important component. Irrigation, honestly, that's why it's a continuing program, and having continuous dollars, a relatively small amount, is that this is always ongoing. There's always going to be additional. Frankly, it's a matter of sitting down and having the time and going through it. And essentially, like with Jim, as a good example, is sitting down on Google Earth and pointing all these locations where the GPS, you can use GPS coordinates, or you physically go out and use your phone or whatever, GPS, and you get the coordinates. But it's very time consuming, but it is a very valuable thing. And so we've mostly done stuff that I can do on the computer, because Google Earth is great, Street View is great. You can do a lot of stuff based off of that. But the actual like going on the ground, like say for the trails is another good example. Getting that data, you physically need to go to the location. So that is one of our things that's on the list, is to address more of the landscape features within the city. But there's probably 20 different things I can name off the top of my head that, you know, we want to put on there as well.
Well, my question is that you have basically, I think it was $15,000 set aside. Is that enough to do everything you need to do?
Not all at once, but over
I mean,
time.
but isn't the CIP for a period, is it 5 years?
It's a rolling 5 years, so I think our intention is to always keep asking for it going future years out. Setting aside a little money, I mean, $15,000 is still $15,000, but honestly, it's not going to go that far. We got a great head start when the city was able to get a grant, and that kick-started a lot of it. And we actually have already prepaid for the account out of that grant. So, you know, sort of the account services are paid for. It's all the legwork of doing the actual physical work in the field that's needed. And you know, like the storm drain network is probably going to cost you more than $15,000. So we'd probably split it up over time. I mean, it also requires someone physically going out and looking at, oh, here's an inlet, here's an inlet. You know, that's essentially what it is.
And just to go back to the initial thing that Councilmember Juan spoke about, I did acknowledge that the $250,000 for the assessment for our trails was not in this year's budget, and we had talked about it at a previous meeting. If we're looking at the possibility of asking our residents for 2026 to revisit our tax relative to our landscaping, and wouldn't it be appropriate to have all the knowledge we need to talk to them at that time when we go for that ask and have that data? And if that's the case, and that's coming up in 2026, why wouldn't that be in this next year's budget? It's a fair question, and I know that's for the next conversation, next budget item. So I'm saying thank you for keeping it in here at that amount, even though you guesstimated it. It's just a guesstimate, but we'll talk about that in the next item.
Thank you. Anyone else of the council would like to ask any questions? If not, I'm going to open it up to public hearing, and I ask if anybody in Hoyer Hall has any comments or questions regarding this item. Seeing none. Anybody on the Zoom? Whoop, we do have, at least I see one.
We do have one speaker. Ed Miller, your microphone is available. Ed Miller?
Yes, can you hear me now? Thank you.
Yes.
Excellent. All right,
We can-
I'll be extremely brief. Hey, Larry, I appreciate your presentation very much. I apologize, but I caught something in there that just made me curious about the color of money in a couple of places. I heard talk about stuff in the LMD, and I heard stuff about possibly using gas tax for that. And of course, I'm more familiar with what Measure J money can be used for relative to CapEx. I am less familiar with the gas tax, and I just want to ask you, is there any risk of violating the color of money kind of rules of what gas tax? I know you know this stuff better than me, but I would love to hear it and learn from you. Any risk in using the gas tax money for some of the CapEx in the LMD and stuff like you were talking about? That concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Yes, to be clear.
Go ahead.
The gas tax being spent on the trails report probably will not be an eligible use of funds. I did not specifically look for Measure J because they probably have a little bit more sort of circulation, but Without having that review, I think the LMD or the general fund is obviously probably the most appropriate areas, given, it's physically in the district, and so that it makes sense relative to its use. But we could look at other funds, but I highly doubt gas tax, certainly not RMRA, and then it's really Measure J at that point.
And I take it we have no one else on Zoom that wants to comment on this item, correct?
That is correct, Mayor. There are no other
And
speakers.
then I'm going to
this
close
item.
the public comment on this item and bring it back to the council for action. Any further discussion on this?
No, I appreciate the thoroughness of the report. I for the LMD one, I'm not sure that I would include that at this point until we get the information back. That'd be my only comment. I think it sets a placeholder, and I don't think we have enough information to do that at this point. So that's the only thing I would say on this. And I think the only other thing I would say is on the one above, which is one of the paving projects. This is a location TBD, so I'm hoping that this is a stock photo and not an actual photo of one of the roads in town, because it looks really bad if that's one of our actual roads. That was it. That's Mitchell Canyon. All right. Well, I don't get out that way that often.
And I'd like to actually keep your estimate in the LMD in there, so we can have that conversation in the budget conversation or next item.
Do we need a motion on this, or yes? Okay, well, then I make a motion to approve the City of Clayton's 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2023, 2024 through 2027 to 2028, and incorporate the proposed fiscal year 2024, 2025 capital improvement project allocations into the overall fiscal year 2024, 2025 annual budget.
I second that.
Thank you.
It's been moved by Vice Mayor Trupiano, seconded by Councilmember Cloven. Will the city clerk please take the roll?
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Cloven.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Juan.
Yeah, I'll vote no, only because I don't really like this here, but I think the rest of it's great. So that's it.
If sorry, that was a no?
Correct.
Correct, thank you. And Vice Mayor Tripiano?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Diaz?
Yep, thank you
You
very
have
much. Okay. We now are moving into the last of the action items, and this is item 8C. Adopt a resolution approving fiscal year 2024-25 General Fund, Lighting Maintenance District Fund, fiduciary funds, and other fund budgets, and fiscal year 2024 to 25 salary schedule. And we will now call on our new financial advisor, Regina Rubert.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members, public. I would like to welcome all of you tonight to the conversation regarding the fiscal year 24-25 budget. Jennifer has been a wonderful assistant to me this last month, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate her help. She's going to be guiding us through the slideshow. Again, my name's Regina Rubier. I've been your financial consultant since somewhere in the neighborhood of May 5th. So I'm not quite a month into this yet, but it's been kind of fun. I have about 25 years of experience doing this for various larger agencies throughout the state. Tonight's purpose, We are going to seek authorization from the City Council to adopt the resolution approving the fiscal year 2024 through 25 general fund, lighting maintenance district fund, fiduciary funds, and other fund budgets. And we're also going to approve the fiscal year 2024-25 salary schedule. Again, the staff here has been exceptionally helpful. Jennifer, Stephanie, Elsie, Chief McKeechin, am I going to butcher that? Sorry. Jim, Larry, Adam. The Budget and Audit Committee has been exceptional to work with, and the Finance Sustainability Committee has been exceptionally helpful. So we started this on May 7th with a Budget and Audit Committee meeting. We had 4 Budget and Audit Committee meetings held throughout the month. The second meeting I had with anyone here in Clayton was on May 13th with the Financial Sustainability Committee. The budget was designed as a baseline budget. We were going to keep our expense items relatively neutral. There were some items that we knew that were going up substantially, the police dispatch costs from the City of Concord and the animal control costs from Contra Costa County. I'm going to present the general fund budget first from a big picture standpoint, and then we're going to get into a real deep dive into the details, and we will end with the special revenue funds. We are prepared tonight to delve into the fine details if needed, if council has questions. So here we are with the general fund budget summary. Unfortunately, there is some red on here for fiscal year 2023-24. We haven't received all the projected revenue. And for the next fiscal year, we will look into what is causing that negative number of $229,000. And the council can make some decisions on how we're going to correct that. So we're starting with a fund balance of approximately $7.7 million for fiscal year 2023-24. You have budgeted revenue of about 5.7 million. However, your actual is only at 4.6 million. This actual is year to date as of May 31st, I believe. And then your expenditures, you have about 3.7 million for salaries and benefits for fiscal year 2023-24 budgeted. Your year-to-date actual is 3.3 million. Again, this is as of May 31st. Your services and supplies are 1.9 million budgeted for 23-24, and your year-to-date actual as of May 31st is roughly 2 million. I'm not terribly concerned about the services and supplies, that they're a little bit over budget, because your salaries and benefits are not. From a financial perspective, what that is telling me is that you're having to use more consultants to pay for some of the salaries as you've meandered through this last fiscal year. So we're going to start then with 24-25 budget. We're anticipating a revenue of about 5.8 million. Our salaries and benefits are going up to 3.9 million. The services and supplies are going up just a bit to 2.1 million. And we're going to end with a fund balance of $7.5 million, which is still within your policy for financial sustainability. Your property taxes, as a whole picture, your property taxes are 34% of your revenue. Your vehicle in lieu is 23% of your revenue. Your other taxes, 20%. Franchise fees are 11% of revenue. Sales tax at 10%. And your other miscellaneous revenues are at 2%. And continue on to revenue. And here are the numbers. That your property taxes for fiscal year 2023-24, you're still missing your last payment from Contra Costa County for your property taxes. Don't be surprised, most agencies are. Your sales tax, you are always behind when receiving those sales tax payments. So if you add your missing property taxes and your missing sales tax, technically you would be on budget. Your expenses, you're in pretty good shape for 1 month left. Not much, this is pretty light picture. So now we're going to move in to the deep dive of the general fund budget and the other budgets. So Jen, if you could please bring up that PDF. Here we go. Can you? Is that right? That's the right one. Can you open it like? Span, I think it's over there. This one? Maybe. Can you? I wanted to see it bigger.
You might have to go back escape and then just hit the plus.
There you go. There we go. Okay, so if you scroll down. That's okay.
Maybe just stay in the other.
There we go. Okay, this budget summary page, that's the same page, same sheet that you saw on your previous slide. So if you go down to the next slide. No, the first page of revenues. There we go, that one. Okay, sorry. So this is your line items for all of your revenue accounts for your general fund. As you will see, we've only anticipated about a 4% growth throughout the entire budget. 4% is pretty common. I've worked in this county for a few years now. I have a pretty good relationship with the finance director for Contra Costa County, and that's what they are budgeting across the board, especially for property taxes. Do we have any questions on this page? Okay, moving on. We will go to the expense page.
Can I just escape and don't open up on the full, just blow it up on the, just blow it up and then leave it there, and then that way just scroll on this page. There we go, that's probably good.
Okay, the first third of the page is your salaries and benefits for your general fund employees. That includes your administration, your police department, and some maintenance, your community development, and that includes your overtime for those positions. It includes council compensation and all of the benefits that go along with it. Again, we're not going up terribly. We're only going up by about $100,000. This includes the prospective positioning that you had approved earlier tonight with the changes on, I believe it was item 8A, excuse me. We're going to scroll down to the services and supplies. Again, pretty flat. We're trying to get 3% across the board, except for where we know we have some exceptions. One of them is the rental lease line item. We have some rental for the, leases for the police radios that we have a note. We know we have $36,000 due from each September from 2022 through 2028. We have that included in here. We also have the City of Concord dispatch charges in here, as well as Contra Costa County animal control charges. Other than that, pretty flat across the board. Keep going down, please. Again, just slightly up for this budget. Okay, continue.
Actually, can we go back?
Sure.
Do you mind? Where did that go? Because now, scroll down, it's professional services.
Sure, it's right there towards the bottom.
We budgeted $61,000 last year, and we spent $255,000, but now we're only budgeting $40,000 for the coming year. So can you give me an idea of what we spent the $255,000 on? Because that's a heck of a lot of money, and I'm sure it has to do with personnel changes and consultants. I get that. So I guess what you're assuming is we're not going to have the need to have any consultants next year with the $40,000. Is that the assumption here?
I would hope for the city of Clayton's sake that your consulting roles go down and your full-time employees go up. Jennifer, if you could please scroll to the top part of that. I completely understand your question, council member. So if you can see, you are about $500,000 short on your year-to-date expenses for your salaries. And so that's where your quote-unquote cost savings has come in from those consulting fees, is that you're not paying those salaries. So they kind of counterbalance. And so moving forward, yes, that money is currently budgeted in the salaries portion. If you get to a point, if the council gets to a point where you need to bring in those consultants, at that time when the council authorizes that contract, I would also suggest that the council do a budget amendment to move the money from the salaries positions over to the consulting fees. And so that 40,000 could increase throughout the course of the fiscal year, but then your salaries will be decreasing.
So just going back to our consent agenda, where we are looking at four-leaf for two positions. And that is part of the reason why I wanted to just get a sense of how this is being budgeted. If we had two positions that were working full-time, which is the amount was $360,000. That's why I was kind of asking the question earlier, if we had two positions to fill that, the community development director and somebody who is doing code enforcement, what would that cost be and what's the difference? And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Are they roughly the same?
My understanding is, yes, they are. The cost between the community development director and the code enforcement officer is roughly similar to what you're going to be paying four-leaf. Now, four-leaf, however, it's probably for a shorter time period. So four-leaf's, I don't know, I did not work on the contract myself. I would anticipate, because I've seen contracts from four-leaf and similar other companies, that four-leaf comes in and they just fill in for the replacement needs. So you have a staff need, and because the staffing isn't there, four-leaf is going to come in temporarily. There are other options where four-leaf could come in for a more long-term solution, at which time that contract amount is now going to go greater, and we will need to get council's approval for that larger contract.
Continue, please.
Absolutely. Okay. So I believe we were finished with the general fund expenses if we didn't have any further questions.
And we can come back for questions.
Okay.
Let's get through, and then you can
Sure.
come back for more questions.
This is the expenses by department, in case anyone was wondering what administration was spending, the overall general expenses of the city, the citywide expenses. Keep scrolling, please, Jen. We have Public Works, Community Development, and General Services on this page. And our last page is police, library, engineering, and parks and rec. Keep going. There we go. And now we get into the landscape maintenance district. You have, for fiscal year 2023-24, you have a projected beginning fund balance of approximately $478,000. Your revenue is on target, and you've received a little bit of interest. We scroll down, we go through the expenses. Again, pretty close to on target. We are transferring from this special fund to special revenue fund to the general fund, back into the general fund, $43,381 as budgeted. Right now you have a net change in fund balance of approximately $256,000, which is increasing your fund balance by $734,000 to start off fiscal year 2024-25. If you could please go back up. Thank you. So then you have your revenue. We have another 3% or 4% growth in there. I'm keeping the interest relatively flat just because I'm a conservative that way. And then again, the salaries, everything is coming over. Salaries are coming over with the new salary schedule, but all the expenses are coming over at a 3% growth. There is nothing surprising in this expenditure column, if you can keep scrolling down. And there we go. And we did add a little bit extra for tree trimming services to make the budget balance. We do not have the $250,000 in there. Again, it would be my recommendation to the council that as you have those larger contractual items, that when they come to the council, that for the authorization to engage in the contract, that at that point you do a budget amendment to get the money from your fund balance back into your budget for that expenditure.
I get that it's not in there, and we had the conversation earlier, but again, in light of what we may be asking our residents in 2026 relative to our tax increase, and not having that trail assessment as part of that conversation, at least so they understand what the total cost is, I think that's an error not to include that trails assessment as part of something we need to do in the next year. How can you go to the residents without having all the information? And so why aren't we budgeting that? So just my comment for right now. Thank you.
Okay. All right, here are your special revenue funds. Your city engineer, Larry, and I, we worked very closely to get these coincided to what you just saw. Those are your projected beginning fund balances as of July 1, 2023. You have your projected revenues, which are pretty much on target. Again, minor growth in expenditures. And if you keep going down. You are transferring money from these special revenue funds back to your general fund for basically your general and administrative costs. And as you can see, some of these have some changes in fund balance to the negative, and we can be working on those throughout the course of the year. My philosophy is that the budget is a year-long process. It's not a 3 or 4 week process. And so I hope that your next finance director starts on July 1st and they can work with you in the next 12 months.
I think historically, just a question, because I didn't see it here. I think historically, we had talked about another position in the police department, a lieutenant or something like that, and funding that. Was that something that was discussed And just out of curiosity.
We did not discuss the lieutenant position. Our focus was on, as the council has taken action on, the administrative services division or department, third floor basically. But the chief and I continue to have conversations about the staffing needs of the police department. And just as we've indicated with some of the other positions, specifically the administrative analyst position that right now is recognized but not funded, we would come back to the council in the future to look at the needs, including the other departments.
Thank you. And I want to state that as excited as you were, Mayor Diaz, about having an assistant city manager rather than an assistant to the city manager.
We have both now.
No, as excited as you were about that, due to succession planning, doesn't it make sense to do the same thing for our police department as well? To have that succession planning? Just looking, sorry, you're getting long in the tooth, and so are some of our staff, and we just need to have that succession planning as well. And I'm just saying, but that's the same thing's happening with our maintenance departments as well. We have to have these succession plans and have the people that'll step in when that leadership. So I'm just looking forward to having that conversation when you bring it forward.
In terms of succession planning, I want to tell you, before I retired, I was the director of human resources at a Fortune 500 company. You don't know what succession planning is until you've got 100,000 people and you have to move things up the line. In fact, I did a tour back at AT&T headquarters, and we did a plan for the whole United States for all those businesses. And we tracked people 6 ways by Sunday. Succession planning was very important. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I just would like Regina to continue on the presentation and continue to ask questions. We're prepared at the end of her presentation to answer questions. I also would like to let the council know that Jim Warburton is also available virtually. So if we have questions regarding maintenance, he's also available, as is our engineer. So if we can let Regina get through, we'll finish with questions at the end of the presentation, and then public comment, and then you all can enjoy the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're back to our special revenue funds. These are funds 304 through 616, your development impact fees, your capital improvement, capital equipment and replacement, and your successor housing agency. I know there was talk earlier tonight about your capital improvement and your capital equipment and replacement. Yes, you have funds. This is where they are. This is where the money stays. And when we need to purchase something, we can use those funds for that. All of these special revenue funds are all restricted funds, so they can only be used for what they were set for. Keep going through. Again, more special revenue funds. These are the assessment districts, your neighborhood street lighting district, your stormwater assessment, and your Diablo Estates assessment districts. And how ironic that we are going to finish the budget with where we started with the CAD budgets. Okay, and again, they're all pretty flat. So now we're going to go, do we have any questions here? Do we want to finish the presentation? So let's go back to the slideshow. You should be on page 8. Okay, this is the proposed organization chart for the new fiscal year. We have the council members that the city manager and the city attorney report to, and then you will have your new assistant city manager / administrative services director that has an accountant reporting to them when they arrive. There's a possibility of an analyst in the future, dependent on the assistant city managers and the city manager's needs. The maintenance superintendent has 4 maintenance worker 2s and a maintenance senior. You have a city clerk assistant to the city manager with an administrative assistant and a facilities attendant administrative support that's part-time that will be there to support the city clerk and the city manager. You have your police force, that includes a police chief, 2 administrative positions, 6 officers, 4 sergeants, and 1 community development director with an assistant planner. So our next steps, we're going to continue working with the Financial Sustainability Committee at our monthly check-in with the year-to-date budget versus expenses at the Budget and Audit Committee meetings. The finance advisor or assistant city manager should be providing quarterly updates to the entire council for year-to-date budget versus expenses at council meetings. And again, as I've previously stated, we would be doing budget amendments as the city council starts to implement the implementation plan for the strategic plan. My personal budget philosophy, as I stated earlier, it's a year-long process. So the final recommendation is to adopt this resolution approving the fiscal year 2024-25 general fund, lighting maintenance district fund, fiduciary funds, and other funds budgets, and approve the 2024-25 salary schedule. And I'm available for questions.
Those last couple of charts are not in our packet, correct? If they are, mine's missing. No.
The org chart is not in, the org chart is part of the PowerPoint presentation. We'll make sure that that gets uploaded and also sent to the council.
Okay, anyone have any questions of our financial advisor? I have a very.
Sorry,
Yes,
Mr.
go
Mayor.
ahead.
I'd just like to reiterate where we started the discussion, recognizing that we're bringing this forward to you this evening after many hours of work. We are prepared, that's why Jennifer is here with us, to get into any level of detail the council would like. So, you know, we may want to keep the presentation available in case you want to go back to a certain page or a certain fund, and we can get into that level of detail if the council so chooses.
Thank you. My question goes back to page 6 of 10, where you have the staffing model, table 3, and so we're planning on having a 0.6 person. How does that equate? How many hours is that? Is that 1 person, 2 persons? What? 0.6. It's an administrative position where we have 9.6 people.
So you have right now, based on that org chart, and maybe we can pull the org chart back up. I don't know if we can pull the presentation back. Can we come back on? You have 2 positions that we're currently evaluating. One is a full-time position, and that's the existing building official, office assistant code enforcement position. And that's split various ways. Part of it is towards your community development department, part of it's through your admin. And then you have a part-time position for managing facilities. And so the combination of those has the equivalent of 1.6 FTEs. And then
1.6?
1.6, so that's where the 6 is.
Well,
So we're evaluating those needs.
Not only was I the director of human resources, I was an engineer at one time, and I can't figure out how 0.6 works out of 5 days a week.
3 days a week.
Help me understand that.
60% of a 40-hour work week is 24 hours, which is 3 days a week.
How many hours?
24 hours?
Okay, 24 hours, so that keeps them under the qualifying for benefits, right?
Well,
They get
Isn't
prorated.
32 the magic number?
They get prorated benefits.
How many?
Prorated.
Yeah.
But Mr. Mayor, on
Okay,
that,
those little things like that drive me up the wall because they don't equate in my mind how you translate that into a full-time position. But anyway, neither here nor there. Anybody else have any questions for the financial advisor on this matter? If not, I'm going to open up public comment. And anybody in Hoyer Hall that wishes to address this item? Seeing none. Anybody on the Zoom?
As a reminder for those joining us via Zoom, please use the raise hand or *6 feature to join the conversation. I'm seeing no hands, Mayor. There are no speakers to this item.
So we have nobody, because I can't see any hands either. Even, we're honored tonight by Joel Clayton being here on the Zoom, and how did they get him out of the ground, is what I want to know. Anyway, you want to speak? 3 minutes.
Gracias, don alcalde. As a member of the Finance Committee, I just wanted to say I have attended, I think I only missed one, right? Regina, with you? Yeah, maybe.
I believe so.
I'm not sure, but I've been to everything and I've watched this process evolve. These three right here, and Jennifer, I know how much you put in because Regina pulls up the spreadsheets. The amount of work these three have put in to do this on such short notice and the way this process is flowing is so much better than what we were going through not too long ago. Councilmember Juan, Vice Mayor Trupiano, you guys have put so much into this. I like the idea that we're reviewing the budget quarterly. I mean, it's nice, hey, let's just stamp out the budget and then let's go do lots of other fun things, but finances are important. It's going to be very difficult to convince the public, hey, just give us more money. It doesn't work that way. You have to go through a process like this. And with these three professionals right here, I don't think it can get any better. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm going to close public comment since there's nobody on the Zoom. Bring it back to the City Council for action.
Well, before we go into action, I just want to echo what Mr. Gavidia said. It's been such a pleasure working with you, Regina, and Adam, and Jennifer. I know we don't even know how hard you work. It's a yeoman's job that you pulled this all together in a short period of time. So thank you. It's been, I don't know if I'd say fun, but it's been wonderful working with you through the Budget and Audit Committee. So thank you.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, you've been given a large task in a short time, and so I think that it really reflects the amount of diligence done. So thank you very much. It's obviously, as our city manager indicated in the beginning, given the time, I think some certain trade-offs are made, and we do that just because that's what has to be done. And what's presented here obviously is a starting point, and as we learn more, we'll know more, and we can make changes as we go. But I do appreciate all of the effort that went in here. I do think it reflects, it's reflective of the work, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. Mr. Colvin.
So I want to echo that I appreciate the Budget and Audit Committee. Thank you, Councilmember Juan, Councilmember Trupiano, for your efforts. Thank you for the three of you jumping into a process in the past month that has kind of been a baptism by fire. Just my going through this last night is when I've had the first chance to go through until 3 o'clock in the morning. I feel like I was drinking out of a fire hose. I didn't get a chance to look at every single Budget Audit Committee meeting and the iterations and the questions and decisions that were made. I have a lot of questions about the numbers that are there, numbers, money that was budgeted and not spent, money that is spent but not budgeted for on many categories. You have graciously offered to sit down with me and discuss each of those items. I don't think it's appropriate for me to go through each of those items tonight and ask you line item by line item. I know that we have to pass this budget this month, and sooner the better, but I am not in a position tonight, after drinking out of that fire hose as much as I did last night, to be able to say, yes, go for it. I'm inclined to want to go that direction, but I'm not informed enough with my own analysis versus last year and the year before and the budgets I've seen to be able to make that decision tonight. And that's not saying that you guys haven't done yeoman's work. It's just acknowledging that this is a lot, and we have a lot of things that may need discussion. I brought up a couple items tonight that I thought that might be appropriate to be included in the discussion. But if you don't mind, I would like to have a one-on-one with our staff and bring this thing back for approval at the next meeting. I don't think I had the ability to be able to say yes tonight. And it's not that I'm a no, I just don't have the ability to say yes.
You're not alone. I'm surprised, actually, that we're even bringing it forward for approval tonight. This is the first time that I've ever seen that happen. I know that there's usually discussions that we have during the month. The Budget and Audit Committee meets and discusses and gives periodic updates to the council. So when I saw this, I thought, oh, well, that's just, in case it's got to be on there, that the language has to be on there in case we do decide that we're ready to do that. But to keep hearing over and over, like, oh, we're ready to do this tonight, I'm a little surprised, and that's not anyone's fault. I've been extremely busy with a graduate, et cetera, the last 2 weeks, so I've even missed my meetings with Adam. I had to postpone them last week and today at the last minute working on some stuff at work. So I would abstain if I had to vote tonight because I don't like being uninformed. And I think I sent you a message last night I think it was after midnight, and I think you got back as I was two-wheeling it in here today because we're both really busy. So we're not going to meet until either late Friday or maybe one day next week. But I do want to also do a deep dive, and I've got some questions for Adam as well. And I will ask some questions of my colleagues here who are on the Budget and Audit Committee, because I know that there were 2 meetings that weren't recorded, which is what I do like to go back to go see. And I'm curious how we got where we are. And I would like to hear a little bit more about budgeting for the lieutenant last year, it not being a decision. And I can appreciate, okay, well, we were trying to get the 3rd floor stabilized, because that's important. It really is. I'm all for having a stable city council. Not city council, city hall. But I also do want to make sure that the 2nd floor stays stable. And I want to know what is the plan for that. We've been talking about it now for months. And I know that this is new to both of you, so bear with me. But we started talking about this process well over a year ago, which is how come it was in the budget last year. And if you happen to watch that meeting, I voted no on the budget last year because there's been so much turnover and flux in City Hall. And there hasn't been consistent people in the finance seat. We had someone who started in February, they were gone in May. And then the city manager, Brett, maybe had a few weeks before we came to this first meeting in June to start talking about the budget. So my concern is that there hasn't been, I was concerned about the numbers last year. My concern remains because I haven't been able to see consistent people bringing us things quarterly and us doing a deeper dive. I can appreciate that my colleagues here are doing that, but I still think the numbers last year were not accurate. And so I do have some hesitation with that. I get that it's an easy budget. I get that it's small, but I think we need to go back a good 2 years and understand how we got to where we are now. The other thing that I can see with the positions that as we're funding full-time positions, et cetera, staff is severely underpaid, which is how come I've been asking for them to have increases. I'm still super concerned about PD. We've already had, I think we lost one last year before the Pride event. I think that there was one that was thinking about leaving. I want to make sure that the 2nd floor stays stable. And so I would like to understand better how come we're not including the lieutenant position. And I know that this is another conversation you guys are going to have, but if it's appropriate, I would like to hear what the chief's thinking is on planning. And if that's something that we can incorporate in this year's budget and not punt it again. And I get that it's a living document, but we say that every year, and every single year, that doesn't happen. The goalposts move every year. And I think that for sake of keeping stability on the 2nd floor, I would like them to stop moving and actually do it. So I would like to hear from the chief, if it's appropriate, to hear what would you like to see? What is your plan?
Thank you.
Sure.
This dates back to my initial interview with the then city manager. I outlined that this was part of my goal when I got here, that I wanted to create this position. and I got support from her. But then, unfortunately, she left.
in February, right.
So then I spoke with the previous interim city manager about it. He was for it. He had the finance director at that time put it into last year's budget. Then he left. Then we got a new city manager. We discussed this several times throughout his time here, but for whatever reason, the timing wasn't lined up, and so he had me kick it down the road a few times, and then he left. So it's been something I've wanted to do since I've been here, but it's just something that the timing never seems to be right. And so I keep just kind of waiting, and at some point, I'm hoping that I am able to present this to you guys. I have spoke to the POA leadership, and they have some questions, so I plan on meeting with them at their next meeting and hopefully answering their questions. I have a presentation, not with me obviously, but I have it ready to go, and so I'm ready whenever the time actually comes where I can do it. I hope that answers your question.
It does. I think the only other question I would have is, once you're able to answer the POA's questions, is this something that you would like to see, is this something you would like to see seated between now and next June, the end of next fiscal year, so the end of 2024-25?
Yes, I see the need now, so I think that obviously the sooner the better. We can manage with what we have now, but it's not an ideal situation. We talk about succession planning all the time. Mayor Diaz pointed out when I first got here that I had to leave and go somewhere else to get the experience to be able to come back and qualify to be a chief here. It's unfortunate that it is that way, but it's always been that way, at least since I've been here. I know there were lieutenants here in the past, but in my time here, there was never a lieutenant, and that was always the minimum requirement to be a chief here. So that's why you get people from outside. Every other agency in the county has lieutenant, captain, whatever, or higher, except for us. We're the only city in the county that doesn't have a lieutenant or above. So it does create a problem with internal promotion. I think I pointed out when I attended the San Pablo Chiefs promotion that I think 10 out of 13 city chiefs in the county were promoted from within. So obviously that's the ideal thing to do. It's someone that's familiar with the agency, someone that the people feel comfortable with. And I can remember all the way back to at least my time here, the complaint was always, we get a new chief that comes from the outside and we have to kind of teach them how things work in Clayton and how this community operates. It'd be nice to finally break that cycle. So that's a big reason why I sought out to do that in the first place.
And then as far as how does it work when you go on vacation, right? I know we have
May
4.
I ask if this is relevant to the item?
It is.
How?
Because I would like to know how come the lieutenant position that we funded last year was never
Okay,
done,
I don't wanna
and
get
it's
in a
not
debate with
included.
you,
I'm not trying to
but-
debate.
I just want to make sure it's relevant to this item.
It is, because I would like to ask how come it's not included in this year's budget.
Because this sounds like a discussion we might want to have separately at a different time with the chief and with the appropriate staff, so.
If that is your wish, then my vote would be not to vote tonight on the budget and have that discussion first.
Just to clarify,
Thank
the lieutenant position was never in any budget?
It was in last year's budget.
No, it was not.
It was.
But that's fine. The one that you didn't vote for, right?
Correct, because the numbers weren't correct, but it was absolutely in there.
Okay, well, I disagree, but that's neither here nor there. But
Wrong.
if that's your prerogative, I think that's fine. I think that with the one of the things that I appreciate your comments on the need. I think one of the things that when we approved the 4th sergeant, we were trying to address some of the challenges in the department, and hopefully that made incremental improvements there. My understanding was that there was still discussion to be had with the POA in regards to the positioning, and I think that is a discussion that we can have at a later time. But it's always going to be a challenge. I think if the funding is there, it becomes a much easier discussion. If the funding is not there, then it tilts the other way. So, that to me is something that we need to address, or we can address at a time that's not now. So,
If I may, it was in the agenda report from the city manager last year. It detailed that in the budget, and the previous finance director was asked by the interim city manager at that time to put it into the budget. So that amount was put in there. We just never used it because we didn't create the position.
Yeah, yes, the position was like the salary schedule exercise that we did tonight and all that. That was never established, so.
Mr. Mayor, can I just, and not to interrupt any more questions for the chief, let the chief stand there if there are more questions. Just one response to Councilmember Tillman's question about just the process. And I think I want to go back to what Regina said earlier. You know, this is kind of a baseline budget, and we'll come back to the Budget and Audit Committee and continue to talk about other needs. It might be capital projects, it may be staffing the analyst position, it may be evaluating for LEAF in our planning. We'll continue to come back to the Budget and Audit Committee and then eventually to the council with these requests. The main focus on why the third floor versus the second floor is that we're in crisis, right? We have vacant positions with a finance director, a vacant position with HR manager, and soon to be vacant position with community development director, vacant position with your office assistant / code enforcement officer. So we needed to take action. So we really spent time evaluating the needs of the third floor and the administrative support. Not to say that there's not a need, but I think that as we go into this first quarter, you have your new city manager seated, you have your new assistant city manager / administrative services director seated, the others that are working with 4-Leaf. Give us some time to kind of look at those needs, and then working with the chief, with Public Works, with our city engineer, come back with a discussion about the other needs, and then prioritize those. And to the chief's point, it's not perfect right now, but we don't have a vacancy. We're talking about elevating a position, not creating a new position. You know, so let us kind of continue to do our work of evaluating the various needs, prioritizing those. And then, as Regina also shared, as we come forward on an implementation plan, that's on all things of the 5 goals that the council identified in each one of those areas. Public safety, I believe, is one of those, you know, and that'd be looking at the positions needed, equipment needed, professional services needed, whatever the list would entail. But, you know, I just wanted to clarify that there is a bit of an urgency on the third floor, and that's why that was the primary focus.
Thank you for clarifying, and I can appreciate that. Of course, that's imperative that got fixed first. But I still stand by, if there wasn't constant turnover, we wouldn't be in this position. And we can do all the things that you just now outlined, right? So we have to stop the bleeding, and my goal tonight is to stop the bleeding. It always has been. We need to keep City Hall stable.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to comment? I think that this is a very, I don't think anybody's got any other questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
This is an important item that we need to act on. Yes, there's some potential for moving some things around and answering some of the questions you have in terms of organization on the third floor, which I think, quite frankly, is moving along very well and in the right direction. Now, the second floor police department is an entirely different matter, and that requires some additional analysis that we don't have tonight. It's something that needs to get addressed, but not tonight. So I appreciate that, but we have an action item here before us that we need to decide either we're for it or we're against it or what. So any further discussion? Do we even have a motion pending here?
I'd move approval of the budget as recommended in the staff report, approving the fiscal year 25 budget and the fiscal year 25 salary schedule.
And I'll second that.
Moved by Member Juan, seconded by Vice Mayor Trupriano. May the city clerk please call the roll.
Thank you. Councilmember Cloven.
You've given me no choice. I asked for more time. And so I'm going to say no, because I need more time to take a look at it and have a conversation that I've requested to have with Regina. So I apologize. I appreciate your efforts, but I'm saying no.
Thank you. Councilmember Tillman?
I have to concur. I'm also a no. I was going to abstain, but given that we're trying to ramrod this through tonight, which makes zero sense to me, I'm a no.
Juan?
Yeah, I think all members have been offered time with Regina, and I know that time is sparse sometimes, but in this period during June, we always have several opportunities to talk through the budget. So I think that if those
And
opportunities
then
weren't
we
taken,
approve it at the
then
end of the month.
if those weren't taken, then so be it, but I vote yes.
You vote yes.
Vice Mayor Tripiano?
I'm sorry, what are we voting on now? On the vote?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Diaz?
Yes.
Thank you. You have 3 ayes, 2 noes, with council members Cloven and Tillman dissenting.
Thank you. Okay, that completes all of the action items for this evening. 8A, B, and C. We now move to item 9, items for the council for future and directives to the future staff and so forth. I open that up.
I'll just echo the same thing I keep asking for since October.
I second that. I would like to have that internal review, as she's requested every meeting since October.
Okay, anyone else? No. Thank you. That concludes item 9. We move on to item 10, council reports, and we'll begin with Councilmember Cloven, please.
It was great to go to the CBCA meeting up at Oakhurst. One of the things I really enjoyed is that they do give back to the community, and this particular night they celebrated some high school students. The first group they celebrated was the robotics team from Clayton Valley Charter High School that went on to nationals or worlds. I mean, and did incredibly well. Talking about building a robot that scored more goals than any other robot out there. It's like these kids are pretty darn impressive, and CBCA helped sponsor their efforts, and that was awesome. Plus, they had multiple high school students that are going off to college, and they gave them scholarships accordingly. It is, again, wonderful things they do for the community. I can't tell you how awesome it was on Sunday in our downtown. The Clayton Pride Parade is nothing but joy. It's a complete family-friendly event. There is no alcohol served except as you're going to Moressi's deck. But it's just joy, and it's an interactive event where the spectators are interacting with the parade goers and the speakers, and to have the support from all of our surrounding cities, including our supervisor, including our congressman, and the mayors from the adjoining cities. It shows you that it's not just about Clayton. It's a regional thing, and we're the catalyst for that. And I'm proud to be a part of that, and I'm proud of really representing inclusion, which is one of our character traits in Do the Right Thing. And just thank you all. It was great. End of report.
Thank you. Councilmember Juan.
I think we had a bunch of meetings with the Budget and Audit Committee, so that pretty much dominated most of the time. So that and talking with folks via phone was quite a bit. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Tillman.
Let's see, I had quite a few meetings for Pride to bring that to fruition, and I echo Councilmember Cloven's sentiment. It was a beautiful day, just seeing everybody in the county and hearing from a lot of people who had come from far and wide. One, that they were surprised that our little city is the one who does it. Did you mention that we're the largest city in Contra Costa County that puts this on? And that was also repeated today at the Board of Supervisors meeting where Clayton Pride was awarded a proclamation, not awarded, but given a proclamation in honor of Pride Month, and all of the Board of Supervisors thanking us for putting this on in the county. I also attended, as I said, I have a graduate now, so I was very busy with my high schooler graduating from high school, and having my parents up here sitting on the sidelines watching our little small town parade was pretty neat, given their age and the fact that they traveled up here. But yeah, I think I'll end my report on that too. I did attend the Memorial Day event as well, which was great and very nice. I know you guys will comment on that, but I am just feeling a lot of Happy Pride Month. End of my report.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Trupiano.
Thank you, Mayor, and I will be brief. I've been having wonderful weekly meetings with our city manager, Adam. Again, lots of budget and audit committee meetings, and again, thank you to everyone who participated in those. We had our first concert in the Grove on May 25th, and Leo Vigil, I've heard from people say that he was one of the best bands that have performed in our concert history. We had a great turnout, and our parent faculty club did a great job of raising donations, and we have another concert again this Saturday, June 8th, the California Cowboys, so come out for some country music. And I also attended the Memorial Day event, which, again, my husband is a Gulf War veteran, and it means a lot to us. I want to thank Mr. Gavidia for being instrumental in making that event so special and heartfelt, and I hope we can make it even better next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Very briefly, we had a couple of amazing events over the past couple of weeks. One of them was the mayor for the day, Alex Silvermaster. What a bright young man. And not only did he assist in running the meeting of the 21st of May, he then came back and we conducted a tour of City Hall, including the administration section. We went to the police department, and then we went over to the courtyard because he wanted to know, how do we get all this stuff done out there? I mean, those are the kind of questions this young man was asking. So I think we helped in developing a future leader. It was just absolutely incredible. On the 22nd, we attended our first agenda setting committee meeting, and that'll be again tomorrow. Again, as mentioned before, the concerts in the Grove with Leo Vigil and the Rockin' Horns. Boy, that place was rocking on Saturday night. It was incredible. But the one that I'm most proud of was on the 27th of May. That was where we started a new direction in recognizing and not celebrating, but having the Memorial Day ceremony over at the Grove Park. We had, first of all, a lot of the city and county and United States representatives there on that in the Grove Park at the gazebo. It was the first time we've had all those people there. Tim Grayson, Mark DeSaulnier, Ken Carlson, Eddie Brisson, and other people from our community as well as the other surrounding communities. Just so you'll know, it's a combined organizational event with Concord and Clayton. We do the Memorial Day and host it, and Concord does Veterans Day. But I want to particularly point out that for those of you that may have not been there, we had Morning Colors start the event off, something we have not done in the past. We had a detachment from the Marine Corps that raised the American flag and had a wonderful Pledge of Allegiance and other recognition of people that have given the ultimate, whatever, for giving up their lives for this country so that we can do what we want to do, say what we want to say, and so forth. I particularly want to point out the Marine Corps detachment that was here, led by Lieutenant Colonel Mike Hudson. We were jointly working with the Veterans Foreign Wars Post 1525, which was a very well-planned and well-executed event. The fact that the Marine Corps are now becoming more prevalent and involved in this process, I expect that in years coming, this will be another stellar event that Clayton could look to with a heavy pat in that chest. All right. Last but not least, we had a pre-city council meeting with the interim city manager, which went very well today. And with that concludes the report for the city council, and we will adjourn to the next meeting on Tuesday, June 18th at 7, and then tonight we're adjourning at 9:32 p.m. Thank you so much. We'll see you in 2 weeks.